The Reformed Gamers is brought to you 100% independent and ad-free thanks to our dear patrons over on patreon.com/thereformedgamers. To get yourself sweet perks such as early access to all of our episodes, special episodes of the podcast, and more, head over to patreon.com/thereformedgamers today and consider lending support to the show. Without further ado, let's hop into the show. Hello and welcome, dear listeners, to episode 158 of The Reformed Gamers, the show all about theology, video games, and ringing in the new year in 5 years of TRG. I'm your host, Logan, and joining me for the first episode of 2020 is host of Nintendo Dads and Download Youth Ministries' Youth Workers Guide to Video Games, is Marty Estes, man. Say hello to the dear listeners.
How's it going, everybody?
Man, I'm so glad. You know, fun fact, dear listeners, I was supposed to have Marty on the show a couple years ago, and then I dropped the ball at some point. It didn't happen. So I'm glad that we're finally able to get him on the show, and I'm pretty excited to have you here, man. And so for the dear listeners who maybe don't know about Nintendo Dads or Youth Workers Guide to Video Games, maybe give them a brief synopsis, kind of fill them in a little bit on what each of those shows is all about and where they can find them.
Awesome. So Nintendo Dads is a podcast done by dads for everyone. We call it Nintendo News and Views from a Dad Bod perspective.
Yes.
And so what it is it's just a bunch of guys, some of us who have never met personally, who have gotten tangled up in this podcast thing. And we talk about latest Nintendo news, games, reviews, what we've been playing, all kinds of stuff, but from the angle of parenting. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So from the angle of I'm a dad and I love video games and this is how this plays out in my life. And that was the angle in the beginning when I started listening to them before I ever appeared on the show that hooked me. And that was like the intersection of two wonderful things in my life, being a father and loving video games. And so when they asked me to join up, I think it was about 3 years ago now that I joined the show full time. I was just super thrilled to get to be a part of that. And now there's a whole cavalcade of us. We've got our own Discord server. We run our own YouTube channel. Monthly Mayhem is over there on our Discord as well, where like our patrons get to play games along with us and score points and win prizes.
Oh, right on.
And all that. And then from there, that kind of launched Download Youth Ministries, Youth Workers Guide to Video Games. They were seeking someone to do a video game show, a video game and youth ministry cross-sectional show. And a friend of mine who listens to Nintendo Dads told them, said, this is the guy. This is the one, and which is incredibly humbling and flattering at the same time. And so they kind of approached me through him and we started it up, and we're 13 episodes in. So just over a year. We did our last episode live at, the National Youth Workers Guide, or the National Youth Workers Guide to Video Games. I don't even know what I'm saying. The National Youth Workers Convention in Tampa this year, along with lots of other Download Youth Ministry podcasts, which was a really, really super cool experience. That was like a bucket list thing for me. Being in student ministry for 17 years, I'd always wanted, I remember going to NYWC for the first time and saying, I want to speak here. This is it. And this year was the culmination of that. It's only God can do that. It's totally a God thing. But I'm enjoying doing that show over there. And the idea behind the Youth Workers Guide to Video Games is, how do I take the world of video games as someone who's knowledgeable about that? How do I distill that down into something a youth worker could use in a way that might help them have a conversation with a teenager or understand something a student is doing or is talking about? And basically, that is a tool to help build deeper relationships, but also show some practical ways to use video games in student ministry as well.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah, that's one show I have really enjoyed keeping up with as you've been putting out stuff for that. So yeah, really enjoy that. I haven't listened to Nintendo Dads much, unfortunately. Don't leave the show.
No judgment.
but yeah, it's good stuff. So, dear listeners, links to both of those shows will be in the show notes here, so you can check those out at your leisure. Just a quick note about Adam: he is out doing, visiting family, doing mission trip stuff. So he is out pretty much the entire month of January. So we will have a couple different guests on, Marty included, for the month, and so we will actually have our 5-year celebration episode in February, even though technically. Now is our 5-year anniversary. So 5 years of TRG is going on. We're going to keep that going as long as we can all year.
Congratulations on that, by the way. That's a huge milestone.
It is. It's kind of surprising that we made it this far, but we did. So.
We just did the 5-year thing too.
Right on.
And so it's like 5 years, 6 hosts, all kinds of different crazy stuff like that, but still super cool that you guys have been able to reach that.
Yeah, man. You guys as well. Now, here's the thing, Marty, you've been in youth ministry for quite some time. And when I when I told folks, our listeners, that you were coming on the show, Christian Shipman actually wrote in and said that you were his old youth pastor.
Yeah.
So he wanted me to ask about the Anglin brothers back when you were in Adamsville, Tennessee.
Oh my God.
I'm assuming there's a story there.
Oh, there are many, many stories. These were kids that we picked up on our bus, on our van every Wednesday night. And it was just chaos. I mean, from the having to stop the bus in the middle of the road to stop WrestleMania, to learning what a Prindle is. Do you know what a Prindle is?
I don't. What is that?
That's what they call the gear shift.
Okay.
PRNDL.
Oh,
the Prindle. They're like, because the youngest one would always be sitting behind me and he'd be like, pull the Prindle. To, the youngest one eventually, me threatening to throw him out of the church one time.
Oh my gosh.
It ran the gamut, but we saw God do some really amazing things through those kids. And in those kids in the time that I was there. Mm-hmm. And so it makes it all worth it when you see stuff like that happen.
Yeah, man.
So
for sure.
I remember there's the oldest one, while I was there, kid who nobody ever thought would do anything, really good or anything for the Lord, preached a sermon at a nursing home.
Oh, wow.
And
that's awesome.
One of the kind of the second oldest one, who is one that he's a brother that I'm still in contact with now. He has gone on mission trips and served in student ministry and all kinds of other stuff. And so, God really took a situation there that was sometimes less than ideal, mm-hmm. and sometimes a hassle, and sometimes I want to pull my hair out.
Yep.
But he really took that and did some really cool stuff like that. And he did that with a lot of guys there. Like, and I don't know if it's okay to say this or not, but I'm proud of the fact that Christian has gone on and become a youth pastor now. That's and awesome. That I have students from former ministry. Like I have one who's serving as a missionary in Thailand, who's planting a church there, and others who are planning a girl who's helping plant a church in California, or has helped plant a church in California, and others who are serving in student ministry and serving as music minister in Georgia and all kinds of other stuff. And it's just like, I look back at those early years, because I was 22 years old when I started that job.
Oh, wow.
And I was there for 10 years. Mm-hmm. And the only way that I know to describe all of that is grace upon grace.
Yeah, dude.
Like
straight up.
God's grace in all of that was so evident, because there's nothing that I did. And I look back and I like, there's sometimes I look at some of the things we did and I'm like, oh, why did they ever let me do that?
Yep.
Now as an older and kind of more seasoned youth pastor, I look back at my early years, like the first 2 or 3 years, and I'm like, oh, they should have fired me. I would fire me.
I think I've had a few of those moments already, but I'm not going to talk about them here. So,
hey, look,
I'll save that for the.
If you are a youth pastor, and you have not at least felt threatened with firing, and you're 5 years in, you're not doing it right.
If you don't light something on fire by year 5, are you really doing youth ministry?
Yeah. Like if you've not had to have a meeting with the deacons yet, what are you doing? Come on, guys, step up your game.
Yep. You got to light stuff on fire, I guess. But that's something we're going to be talking about ministry and video games a little bit later on, not specifically how to get into a meeting with the deacons, or it might, I don't know. It depends on how it goes. But so that's what we'll be doing for the topic of the show. Figured it'd be fun to kind of ring in the new year with that particular topic. But Marty, man, we're going to kick things off like we normally Words are hard, even in 2020. We're going to keep things off like we normally do. So, dear listeners, hello and welcome to the Reformed Gamers. We'd like to start off the show like we always do with a little bit of what have we been playing. Marty, man, what kind of games have you been getting into recently?
Well, I'm so glad you asked. I have decided here in 2020 that one of my resolutions is that I am going to complete my backlog.
Oh, there you go.
Of games. So I have a note on my phone called Games to Complete before I buy another major release.
There you go.
There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 18 games.
Okay.
On this list. And okay, full disclosure here. Some of these games are games that we have received review copies of.
Mm-hmm.
Through Nintendo Dads, and I like them, and I do want to finish them. Some of them are games that review copies have pushed out of the way because we needed to play and review. And so the cool thing about that is I've already completed 2 of those 18 games.
Oh, okay.
Since the start of the new year. I was cheating a little bit. I was working on it during Christmas break, right? So good, I just finished New Super Lucky's Tale for the Switch.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Which is Super Lucky's Tale on the Xbox One. And there's been from what I understand, I'm not familiar with the Xbox version of the game, but there's been a ton of changes to it since it moved over to the Switch. But I played the demo on Switch and just absolutely fell in love with it, from the music, the visuals, the humor, all of it. And it is super charming. One of the best 3D platforming games I've ever played in my life. And I just can't say enough good about it. And like from what I can tell, I finished like the main story, and there's significant post-game content.
Oh, awesome.
So that's what I'm working on right now. Like there's something that you do after it. I won't spoil it, but like you're working, it's kind of, you're doing challenges that, and you'll be familiar with those from the game, but it just kind of adds and pads the story. And so I've really enjoyed that. And really, I actually won some eShop money on Twitter.
Nice.
By liking someone's post. And so I got Super Lucky's Tale, New Super Lucky's Tale with that. The other game I got with that is, because it was on sale, and I just picked it up and finished it last night, was Grease, which I believe won Games for Impact this year at the Game Awards.
Okay. I'm not familiar with this one.
If you have not played this game, what a fantastic experience. And I will call it that. It is an experience. I guess I could call it a game because there are game type elements to it, but it is more of a story that you play than a game.
Okay.
It is a platformer, but everything is done in this just absolutely beautiful watercolor style of art.
Oh, and I know which game you're talking about now.
You're playing this girl, who is, I guess, like the subconscious of another girl, and she's gone through a really traumatic experience. Which I've got to read up on this, but I kind of think it's depression.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was one of those games.
And so you're battling like her coming out of this depression and becoming who she is again. And the way that you do that, like the way the game reflects that, is as you do that, you bring color back to the world. And it is just absorbing. Yeah. Like I fell in love with this game. I wanted it when it first came out because it looked so cool. And then I heard it was like 4 to 5 hours long. And then it went on sale over the holidays for like $7. I was like, it just won an award chances are it's pretty good. So I picked it up, and I'm so glad I did. It was for a game that has absolutely zero dialogue, like no words, nothing. It told a fantastic story.
Yeah, man. I played that game back in, it wasn't last, it would have been the winter of 2018. And yeah, it's a cool game. I like the colors, like the use of the music and stuff. So that's pretty cool. You played it on the Switch?
I did,
Awesome.
and it runs fantastic. Yeah, it's. Yeah. I played it on my Switch Lite, and I kind of wish that I had played it on the TV, on docked mode with my other Switch, just because of how well it looked, or how good it looked, and how well everything flowed. But I'm glad I got the experience. I was sick over Christmas, and so some of that time playing this game was spent in bed.
Yeah, but
so that was really cool. And one other game, and I see this on the show notes that you have been playing as well. I picked up Jedi Fallen Order.
Yes. Tell me,
because
man.
Redbox
What do you
was
like?
having that sale where they were getting rid of all their games. I got it for $25.
Nice. It's a score, man.
Yeah, no,
it's a score.
I'm loving this game. I picked it up right after seeing Rise of the Skywalker, and I just needed more Star Wars.
Yep. That's how it was. I watched The Mandalorian and then started playing that because I was like, I need more Star Wars in my life.
This game and The Mandalorian have completely given me the proof that I need that there is going to be Star Wars that is interesting and engaging outside of the Skywalker saga.
Yep.
And so I like the guy that they got, and I've totally blanked on his name. The guy that plays the main character in Fallen Order. He played the Joker in Gotham as well. I love his work, and he just brings such life to any character he plays. And I cannot wait to finish this game. I don't get a lot of TV time to play games, and that's why I love my Switch more than I love my PS4. But the sad thing is, some of the games on this list are games that are PS4 only, and so I'm having to really balance. And they're heavy games, like they're long journeys. God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn is on this list.
Yeah,
Last of Us, which I have never played.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, I've never played The Last of Us.
Dude.
Ori and the Blind Forest is on there. Of course, I've got it on Switch.
It's a great one.
Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 and Cadence of Hyrule I need to finish. So there's some that are little games, and then and a lot of these are in progress games. But I guess the big one, like the one that I know I'm going to sink the most time into, is The Witcher 3.
Oh, dude, it's a beefy game, man. Get ready for it.
Yeah, I know. I've put about 4 hours into it.
Oh man!
And so I'm like, I love all these games. It's just. And like in the case of God of War and Horizon Zero Dawn, they were $15 at GameStop last year on sale, and I bought them, and they're still in the shrink wrap.
Oh, dude, come on.
I know. That's what I've been playing.
Man, that's wild. That is wild. Well, you're in for a good year of gaming then. You are in.
Oh, I think so. I have to finish all of this by March 20th.
What's March 20th?
Animal Crossing.
Oh, yeah.
Animal Crossing New Horizons comes out for Switch on that day. Of course, a lot of people associate that the day Doom Eternal comes out as well.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be, while some people are ripping and tearing zombies, I'm going to be ripping and tearing turnips out of the ground.
There you go, man. And then ripping and tearing up that debt to Tom Nook.
That's right. Got to pay off that brand new Tom Nook Desert Island package that he's selling in this new game.
Oh, man, that's awesome. That is awesome. Well, yeah. Well, then as far as what I've been playing, then I'll start off with Jedi Fallen Order. I beat the game, got the Platinum Trophy. Dear listeners, I'm just going to tell you this. If you haven't played this game yet, even if you're not a Star Wars fan, well worth playing. It manages to combine all the the good elements of these other games, like Uncharted, Dark Souls. Trying to think of like one other third
Tomb
one. Tomb Raider, all that stuff. Combines it all into one game with Star Wars paint over it, and it's a ton of fun. It is A ton of fun. I really enjoyed that game. I wish it would have had a fast travel thing, just because if you're doing the collectibles, trying to get the platinum, it would have made it easier, but that's just a minor gripe. The whole game is just really,
but you got
really
that
solid.
plat, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. So I did everything. So there you go, dear listeners. Jedi Fallen Order gets the TRG Platinum Seal of Approval, which is a thing I just came up with. So there you go. You can use that to go pick the game up. Another game that I finished, which was a short game recommended to me by one of the dear listeners, Connor Felty, is a game called Minute, which is made by Devolver Digital.
Yes.
Have you played that, Marty?
Yes.
There you go. Okay.
Love this game.
So for the dear listeners that don't know what Minute is it's kind of like old school Zelda in the sense that you have the different zones on the map that you go through. It's kind of flat over the head style stuff. You got the sword combat, but each playthrough is a literal minute, 60 seconds. And so you have to try and do as much as you can in that 60 seconds. Your progress is saved as you go into a new playthrough, and then you just kind of continue doing that loop until you get to the end of the game. Trust me, it plays better than it sounds. I know that sounds a little weird, but it is. I was surprised at how cool the game was, and I really enjoyed that. And plus, the platinum trophy was pretty easy. So,
what did you think about that ending, by the way?
It was interesting. It wasn't what I was expecting.
Right.
You kind of get hints at where it's going throughout the game when you talk to the representative from the factory, but and just listening to the townspeople and kind of what they say. But
man,
it's different.
And I was going to say this too, like if you're listening to this and you're going a minute, I die after a minute, there's ways to cheat that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you unlock those as you go through the game.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to see. Think about it like this. Think of it as overlapping progression.
Yes.
Right. So you'll figure one thing out, and that will unlock something else, and then you'll have to go try a new way and figure out something else, and then those two might combine, or you might find a new way to use an item or something like that. It is. I'm not going to call it game of the year or anything, but it's one of the most inventive indie games out there.
Yeah.
Did you play this on the Switch?
No, I played it on PS4.
No, you platinumed
it.
So yeah, it's on PS4. I played it on the Switch, and like it. I think I finished it in like a Saturday afternoon.
Yep.
But it was so much fun.
Yep.
And it made me laugh. Like it takes a lot for a game to make me genuinely laugh. And there were just some things in there that I just shook my head and chuckled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a really charming game. And I would even say it really kind of what I kept thinking about when I was playing this game was Undertale. For some reason, it kept reminding me of Undertale. And so,
well, it has that black on white, art style. That's very.
It's pretty similar.
I want to call it 1-bit, maybe 2 or 3 bits.
Yeah.
But it is very simplistic. But yes, it does remind me a lot of Undertale, and same type of humor as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So, dear listeners, those are 2 games that you can check out. Got the TRG Platinum Seal of Approval on both of those, so you can go check them out. Unless you're taking on care of your backlogs in 2020, then maybe wait, except for Star Wars. Don't wait on that. 2 other games I finished over Christmas break are Untitled Goose Game and Alien Isolation. My thoughts for both games. Well, let me just say this about Alien Isolation. I'm a huge fan of Alien. Love the movies. The first 2, I only count there being 2 in that franchise. But it's a cool game. And unless you are not a fan of Alien or survival horror, you're probably not going to like the game. But if you like a game that's set in the Alien universe that captures the alien character itself very well and has that great gripping atmosphere that the movies have, you like stealth gameplay, it's right up your alley. It's well worth playing. And then Untitled Goose Game is just a goofy, fun time. It's just, I'm about to get the platinum trophy for it, so it'll eventually get another seal of approval from us. But it's a fun game. I don't think it's as amazing as other people have been talking it up to be. It is funny. It is charming. But for me, that stuff kind of wore off about 3 hours into the game. And so it is what it is. I think it's fun and it's worth playing. But I don't think it's like this amazing game by any stretch of the imagination. It's a fun game. It's a charming game. I don't think if you play it, you'll hate it. But yeah, so that's what I've been up to. That's what I've been up to in the last couple weeks. But let's switch gears to what have you been reading? Marty, man, what have you been reading? I know we talked pre-show about how we got to preach the National Youth Pastor Preaching Day thing. But what have you been getting into?
So I'm not a big reader. I'm going to be real honest with you. I know that's probably a no-no for your show, but that's okay.
It's okay. We'll kick you off after this.
That's okay. It's hard for me. I have a hard time reading. So, and really, I mean, if I get downtime, I'm playing video games. So, I mean, so see me. But
no, I know. I relate very well.
But I am reading a book right now that I love, and I think is a book that is going to be necessary for every staff member at a church to read when it finally releases. This is a pre-release book that I'm reading, is by Doug Fields of Download Youth Ministry and Simply Youth Ministry and Purpose Driven Youth Ministry fame. It is his brand new book that is coming out, I think in February, or it may already be out, called No, A Guide for Busy People.
Okay.
And the tagline on the cover says, banish busyness and focus on what matters most. And not only is it one of the most visually appealing books that I've ever seen, but it is such a shot in the arm for people like me who constantly feel like we are being pulled in 4 billion different directions. And I know that like for me, as a staff member at a church, but also just my personality, it's way easier for me to say yes than to say the risky 2-letter no and risk letting people down or, people thinking, well, he told me no. But Doug makes a big case in this book that saying no to some things is saying yes to others.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good quote.
And, like the idea that if I'm saying no to busyness, I'm saying yes to my family, or I'm saying yes to my health, or I'm saying yes to being able to record an episode of the Youth Workers Guide to Video Games podcast when I might otherwise be doing something else that maybe is not even in my job description. Wow, that got really specific. That is an idea that I need to carry into 2020. And so it's a very timely book for me. It's not a very long read at all. In fact, I'm looking at my copy of it right now, so I can tell you when it does finally release, it clocks in at just under 100 pages.
Oh, that's not bad
so
at all.
So it's not something like, for those of you who are busy and you think, how can I read a book about busyness? There you go. And I think it's just, this is a topic for me that I feel like we as church staff and anybody who works with people really needs to engage. Because we too many times, I think, want to say yes, not because we want to do the thing, but because we want people to like us.
Yeah. And
I know that that's definitely me. So I am working on my no in 2020.
Yeah.
Or working on my, I can't do that. You'll have to find someone else too. But to do that so that I can say yes to the things that I really need to say yes to. So it's been really good.
That's awesome.
I highly recommend it when it releases.
I'll have to look that up. I was a big fan of Doug's book, Your First 2 Years in Student Ministry. I read that when I was in seminary, and that was pretty helpful. I had to read it twice because, I ended up forgetting it when I was trying to read everything else and learn Greek. So,
right.
So yeah, I'll have to look it up.
This book actually has released.
Oh,
just so you guys know, it came out on August 29th of 2019.
Well, then I will be picking that up.
He also has another book. He also has another book along the similar lines that I'd read before that came out many years ago called What Matters Most When Saying No is Better Than Yes. Personally, I think that this new book nails the point that he's trying to make way better.
Okay. Awesome. I'll have to look that up.
For some reason on Amazon right now, this is really expensive. That book. Don't pay that.
That's weird.
Go to the book's website and get it there instead.
There we go. I'll have to post a link to that in the show notes for that there. But yeah. Well, dear listeners, as far as what I've been reading then, I finished The Power in Prayer by Charles Spurgeon, which, come to find out, he has another book called The Power of Prayer, so it's very confusing because I got both books confused. But I finished that one over Christmas break, finished it on a flight home, and it's just solid. It's helped me really. I think if you guys have listened to the last couple episodes, it's really helped me get a better grip on prayer and how to really approach it rather than this kind of dry, like boring way of what I think most people do when it comes to prayer. But I think this quote just bears repeating again because, I used it in a sermon this past week and have just been thinking about it a lot ever since I read it. And in case you missed it the first time around, the quote is, "Pray for prayer. Pray until you can pray. Pray to be helped to pray. And do not give up praying because you cannot pray. It is when you think you cannot pray that you are most praying." And that that particular quote from the book has just been in my head ever since I read it. It's been encouraging me to pray every single day, every single morning when my Todoist app reminds me to do so. And it's good. I think it's well worth anyone who has been struggling with prayer, who is maybe trying to get more intentional about praying in 2020. I think The Power in Prayer is a great kind of kickstart to that resolution for you this year. So I highly recommend it. Really enjoyed the book. Was really encouraged by it. Definitely challenged me in some good ways. So that is The Power in Prayer, not The Power of Prayer. The Power in Prayer. I guess you could read both if you want to. They're pretty short. Read one of Spurgeon's prayer books, and then you can do that, and then have fun with that. But dear listeners, before we get into the topic of the show, I want to remind you that you can leave us a rating and review on iTunes or your podcast app of choice. It helps us out in a big way because podcasts are based off those ratings, and that adjusts their algorithm to change kind of how we do in the rankings and all that jazz. So if you haven't left us a rating and review on your podcast app of choice, please do so. Maybe when you're done listening to this episode, or you can hit pause and do it now, or you can keep listening. Just whenever you want. I'm not going to tell you what you do. You're probably a grown adult. Do what you want. But we'd really appreciate it.
I'll tell him what to do. Do it right now.
Okay, there you go. Thank you, Marty. I'll let you do that then.
I'm only here for one episode. It's kind of like when you bring in an evangelist to preach revival, and he can just kind of carpet bomb the audience on his way out.
Yes.
That's what I feel like right now.
Well, you're not about to leave, though, because we got to get into the topic of the show. So.
Well, no, but they can get mad at me for telling them what to do, and you can just blame me. Be like, that guy, we'll never have him back.
And then plot twist, we bring you back on the next episode.
Right?
That would be awesome. But man, speaking of the topic of the show, we've been in youth ministry. I've been in youth ministry for what feels like forever in both volunteer positions and now as a youth pastor of 3.5 years. You've been in youth ministry for it seems like a long, long time, much longer than me.
Is that your way of okay boomering me this episode? By the way?
No, but I mean, no,
okay.
I'm more direct.
If you want to, it's okay.
More direct with the okay boomer stuff. So you can ask my students. But no, we're going to talk about video games and youth ministry. I figured it'd be great to have Marty on for that because, you have the podcast surrounding that, and you've been around for longer than I have. So I think you have some more wisdom there than what I can offer. My thing is just play all the games, but that might not be the best approach. So man, let's start with this. How long exactly have you been in youth ministry?
Oh my.
Or is that a dangerous question to ask?
No, that's fine. That's fine. In a full-time, church staff role, 17 years.
Okay.
But there was probably 3 to 4 years of on and off volunteer experience before that. Where I really got my volunteer experience was with this is a fun story. The church I'm currently serving, which I started attending in college because I was interested in my now wife who grew
Okay.
up here. So I'm now serving in the church that my wife grew up in, where her dad is a deacon.
Okay.
And I am recording this podcast in the room where I got ready for my wedding, which is my office.
So it kind of just comes full circle then for you.
It has come full circle, and I love this place. I love these people. I love this church. I really do believe that God led me here 7 years ago for a reason, and I believe He's not done with me here yet. And so it's really cool, that she got to move back to her hometown and all that. But 10 years prior to that, I was student and children's pastor at First Baptist Church in Adamsville, Tennessee, which is where I met Christian and the Anglin brothers and so many others that you've already referenced.
Yeah.
So I still do youth and children here at my current position. So I'm dual role. So
right on.
And I feel like some days I will be dual role until the day that I die.
Yep. That's typical for ministry, man.
Okay.
That's how
Right,
I am. I do youth ministry, and I basically do college ministry too, and social media stuff here at my church. So I totally can relate to that. We wear
my latest job has been minister of signs.
Oh, okay.
As getting all the signs ready for our new building.
Oh, okay.
That'll bless your heart. That's a job that will bless your heart.
Does one of the signs literally say "bless your heart"? Because that would be totally amazing.
No. It's all the like signs that point people to find stuff.
Oh, gotcha.
So that required me to dig into a different part of my wheelhouse here, which was really not as fun as it sounds.
Right on. Well, let's talk.
But they're done.
Let's talk about something fun then, man. Because you've been, 17 years of youth ministry. I mean, you've been around for, Xbox, PlayStation, or the Xbox 360, the PS3, the current systems, even probably some of the systems before that, the Colossus, that is the Wii. So, man, when it comes to, let's start off here. When it comes to ministry, and those of us that are working in ministry, whether you're a pastor, a youth pastor, senior pastor, whatever, children's pastor, why is it important for us to maybe not play video games, but at least know about them and be somewhat literate in that area? Why is that important for us in ministry?
Yeah. So, gone are the days when video games were just what nerds did. If I can be blunt about it.
True,
I grew up in the 80s. I'm an 80s kid. I was born in 1980. And so for the majority of my time in school, video games were what nerds did.
Yep.
Right. I would talk about video games and I would get made fun of, or, Marty likes Nintendo. Who cares? Now it's like, who cares? Because nerd culture has taken over. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, everything comes back. I mean, people are super excited about Star Wars and Marvel movies and the internet. And there's a song, I don't know if you've ever heard a band called, I think it's We Fight Dragons or something like that. And they have a song called The Geeks Will Inherit the Earth. And it's basically about that. It's like, you made fun of me in school, but now, we've got the cars and we've got the money.
That's
and,
awesome.
The geeks have inherited the earth. And that's kind of what it is. And so to that end, video gaming went from something that that nerdy kid in class did to a cultural cornerstone, right?
Yeah.
I mean, look no further than the fact that if you're a youth pastor and you have been in youth ministry for any time in the last 2 years, you know what Fortnite is. And you probably know more about Fortnite than you ever wanted to know. And so it's important for us in that realm, knowing that like now video games have a development budget along the line of what movies used to have.
Yeah.
And development timeline as well. And I mean, you look at that, and it's, you've got movies and music, and I would say video games are the main like influencers among students. And for video games, especially male and a growing portion of female students that play video games, that are involved in them, that know about them. And they don't just know about them like, oh yeah, I know what a video game is, my brother plays those, or my friend plays that. It's they do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's either on a system or a console like we would normally talk about, like Xbox or NES or Wii or whatever, or they do it on their phone.
Yeah.
Which is gaming too, whether you want to admit it or not, right?
Yeah,
I mean, every person who's playing Candy Crush could technically be called a gamer. That sounds weird coming out of my mouth, but
I know some people that are listening are cringing right now, but that's okay.
Yeah, I know, but it's a broad spectrum.
Yeah.
And so I say it like this on my show: because teenagers are there, we need to be there.
Yep.
We need to know at least how to converse in that world, just like we need to know about pop culture, and we need to know, that's why I think that we have one of the hardest jobs in the church as student ministry, because we not only have to be students of the word, and we have to be students of what God's doing in our own life and be present with that, but we also have to be students of the culture as well.
Yeah.
More so than anyone else, because parents are going to look to us, students are going to look to us, and a lot of times our staff are going to look to us.
Yeah, that's true.
About, hey, you know about Kanye, right? Tell me something about Kanye. Well, why do you think I know about Kanye? Because I'm the youth pastor? Well, yeah. Same reason that, you get people who come to you at church and be like, hand you their phone and be like, fix this.
Yep.
Well, why do they do that? Well, because you're the youth pastor. You know all this stuff. So that's why it's important.
Yep. It's funny with both of those examples. The reason people ask me about Kanye was because I wouldn't shut up about it for 2 to 3 weeks on social media. I was like, this is so cool. But yeah, I'm glad that you went that direction, man, because where students are, that's where we need to be. But it's something that we need to know about. We need to be conscious of our culture. And I even have brought this quote up multiple times on the show from Jane McGonigal, where she says in her book, Reality is Broken, that the people who continue to write off games will be at a major disadvantage in the coming years. Those who see them unworthy of their time and attention won't know how to leverage the power of games in their communities, in their businesses, in their own lives. They will be less prepared to shape the future. And man, I think that is so relevant for even us in youth ministry, because we do need to know kind of what they're getting into, what they're engaging with, what they're interacting with, for a variety of reasons. There's definitely some ministry opportunities there where we can hang out there with them, but there's also some potential dangers that we need to be aware of that we're able to let parents know about, let our churches know about.
Yes.
And so I think that's a great place to start. And I think that gives a very good, weighty reason for us to understand why we need to at least be literate, maybe not play games. Maybe some of you listening are in ministry. Actually, I don't know why you'd be listening to a gaming podcast if you don't play video games. That's
right.
Weird to me. But I'm assuming you're sharing this with someone who doesn't. But, it's important to at least know some of the things about gaming and kind of getting into that. But man, let's do this, because Wesley Ray, one of our listeners and one of our dear patrons, wrote in, and he goes, how do you guys go about connecting with families about what you're doing ministry wise? So maybe this involves video games, maybe it doesn't, and kind of what do you do when a family doesn't really agree with what you're doing? Maybe a parent doesn't agree with you playing video games. I know when I was playing Fortnite with students, some parents were not very happy with me because they felt that I was encouraging their kids to play Fortnite. So what do you do with that? How do you get parents to buy in? How do you connect with them? What kind of tips would you have there?
Yeah. So many, many years ago at the National Youth Workers Convention, the first time I went, 2002, I'll never forget this. One of the platform speakers for Big Room, which is what they call their worship gatherings, was Andy Stanley.
Okay.
Andy, everybody's got an opinion on Andy, which is fine. But here's what I have an opinion on. He said something that night that forever changed my ministry. in a way that I did not know at the time, but I held on to it. And this is what he said. He was speaking about, just how we interact with people and about how we come across as leaders. And he said something along the lines of this quote. He said, people don't care how much you know if you're not clear. And that has stuck with me. And so in my dealings with students, with parents, with other student pastors, my goal has been from the beginning, what you see is what you get. Clarity, clarity, clarity. Say it until it's clear. Mm-hmm. And so personally for me, like a best practice for me is that twice a year, I'm going to have a meeting with my parents and we're going to talk about everything the student ministry is doing for 6 months.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
So I make sure that we, like January right now, I've got everything planned out for the rest of this year. So that way, and I'm not saying everything, but I'm going to give them high points. I'm going to give them mountaintop things. I'm going to give them, here's the series we're teaching up until a certain point. Here's all the big events that you need to be aware of. Here's when you need to pay for those things. Here's, all those things. And then as we get closer to those big events, we'll have smaller meetings that are about those specific events. So the key that I've found is that you want to communicate, but you don't want to over communicate. Mm-hmm. And so those meetings, as well as the event meetings and a monthly email that I send out to my parents with all of our events for that month, a reminder of what we're teaching, a helpful link for them that includes like a video for them to watch about a parenting issue, and a link to a book that is helpful, would be helpful for them if they'll get it. And what that does is it does two things. Number one, you're communicating.
Yeah.
And I use an email service so that I can see how many people open that email. So, if somebody comes to me and says, hey, you're not communicating enough, I'd be like, well, I sent you that email and you never opened it.
There you go.
The other thing that it does is it totally puts the onus on them. Right. So I'm offering you these resources. I'm working to disciple you as a parent. I'm working to be here for you, but you've got to click the link. You've got to order the book.
Yeah.
Right. So it doesn't feel like it's totally on my shoulders. There's a great service that's out there. And I don't know if you guys know about it as student pastors. It's called ministrytoparents.com. And when you buy into this for a year, they give you all the emails you need to send, as well as book reviews. They're called snapshots. Basically, they read the book so you don't have to. You can send that along, and they give you events that you can do and things you can send along for both kids and student parents that are meant to turn parents into disciple makers, as well as a yearly experience that you do, like when your kid's in 6th grade and 7th grade and 8th grade and on and on and on and on. Mm-hmm. So I found that to be a really useful tool, as well as like a Facebook group that is just for parents, or a page. We actually use a page so anybody can see it. So they see all of our things, and we text as well. So, I mean, we just try not to overwhelm them, but I find that I get the most traction with that 6-month meeting. Okay. So we're just about to do one. So we'll do one this month. The second Wednesday of this month, we'll have a parent meeting. And then in June or July, or August, somewhere around in there, we'll have a meeting for the rest of the year.
Okay. That's awesome.
But now to answer the question about what you don't do when a family doesn't agree with what you're doing,
you just tell them to get over it, right?
Yeah. Well, hang on now.
I was kidding.
I may be about to say that. You don't know.
Awesome. I was right.
No, what I was going to say is you have to ask yourself, when a parent is upset with you, is what I'm doing pleasing to the Lord or not? And there are sometimes that I'm saying this with 17 years of ministry experience. You just got to let a parent be mad. And you just have to understand that there's some things that you can't apologize away, or you can't do. It's beyond your control. You're always going to be upsetting somebody. And really, I'm probably upsetting somebody right now, and I just don't even know it. In my own ministry.
Yeah.
But if we worry about that all the time, then what happens is we become worried about what man thinks and not what God thinks.
Yeah.
And I understand that I'm not chastising anybody when I say this, because I struggle with this too.
Right.
Like, because I am the ultimate people pleaser. I want people to love me. I want people to just, like, when I walk into a room, to be like, oh man, Marty's here. He's the best youth pastor who's ever existed on the face of the planet. Everyone else should just go away. He should just run all the youth groups ever.
Because he says yes to everything, right?
The thing is that there is a difference between being confident in what you're doing and drinking your own Kool-Aid.
Wow.
And the thing is that my confidence in what I'm doing comes from the fact that, have I prayed about it? Have I checked up with the Lord about it? Have I okayed this with leadership? And trust me, I've had people leave churches over something I've done before. I got called a heretic at my last church.
Oh, wow.
Which was real fun to deal with.
Yeah, I bet.
But the thing is that what you have to do is, you cannot let one person. My wife tells me this all the time. Okay. So just so you know, this is relevant advice that I need to take. Okay. And I'm pointing at myself when I say this. My wife says to me all the time, you can't let one or two people detract from the, 20 others who are standing there cheering you on. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. That's true.
Like, let's take your example, for instance, Fortnite. Some parents don't like that. Okay. You have to understand that what they do in their house may not be what you do in your house. But at the end of the day, are you going to go to hell because you're playing Fortnite? Are you sinning because you're playing Fortnite? Probably not.
Yeah. Depends on who you ask, right?
It depends on who you ask, but I don't believe so.
Yeah, no, yeah, definitely.
And so it's very subjective. That whole thing about, like, this family doesn't agree. Now, do we allow M-rated games in our student ministry room? No. And it's for that reason.
Yeah.
It's for that reason. Like, I will never allow an M-rated game to come in. Like, I've had students like, why can't we get Call of Duty for this? We want to play zombies. And I was like, you can play zombies at home.
Okay.
Because, like, I may not have a problem with that per se.
Sure.
But the second a parent comes up here and sees that and hears the language that comes through on those Call of Duty games sometimes.
Yeah. It'd be a lot of trouble.
Then what they're saying is, this student ministry sanctions that. Yeah. And then we have a problem. And so, like, there's some things that I'll do and there's some things I won't do. So I don't know if that answers the question, but I think it does in a roundabout way. But I'm 39 years old, and I'm confident in the fact that I can't sit and worry about what people think about me all the time. Yeah. I've got to do what I've been called to do. And you know what? If somebody has a problem with something I'm doing, then here's what we'll do. We will brew a cup of coffee and we'll sit down and we'll have a conversation about it. And maybe my thinking needs to be adjusted on it. Maybe my feelings need to be adjusted on it, right. Then, and maybe the Lord's going to use that conversation for me. Maybe he's going to use it for the other person, but we need to sit down and dialogue about that, and not just, well, they hate me. Yeah. They, or whatever, or allow it to fester. Yeah. So
that's good.
I don't know. That's just that's where I'm at. Thankfully, the place I'm in right now and the season I'm in ministry, I don't have a lot of that. Thankfully. So, I've come from a place where I did.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
And the Lord allowed that time to, like, kind of get my, I guess, toughen up my skin a little bit. So, yeah.
Well, that's good, man. I like that a lot. I think that's pretty helpful, even for me, being in youth ministry. That's something that I've had to work with. And you touched on a topic here that I was actually going to go to next. That was written into us by Connor Felty. When it comes to what games do we allow in our youth rooms, how do we incorporate that in our programming? You don't let M-rated games in your student ministry. And I love the reasoning that you have behind it. But because of these consoles and even the Steam and all that is so like they have social networking things integrated into them now, and people can see what everybody else is playing.
Yes.
If you don't allow a game, we'll use Call of Duty, for example. If you don't allow Call of Duty in your youth room, but let's say you play it at home on your PlayStation, Xbox, whatever, how do you strike a balance between the two? Should we as youth leaders play those games? Should we even be friends with our youth on those consoles? I guess, how would you go about trying to wade those waters as a youth pastor?
So this is just, I'm going to get into like my personal feelings on this. All right.
Okay.
And maybe this is not best practices or whatever, but I'm absolutely going to play that game with that student.
Mm-hmm.
If a student wants to play a game with me, the very fact that they're saying, "Hey, hang out with me," I'm going to do that.
Even if it's Call of Duty or Halo.
Even if it's Call of Duty, like if a student looked at me and said, Will you sit here and get on your phone and play Candy Crush while I play Candy Crush? I'm thinking of like the worst possible game I can think of.
Yeah.
All right. Like I'm going to do that because why? Because a student sees value in me investing their time in them.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do that. Am I going to be terrible at it? Yes, because if it's Call of Duty, I'm terrible at first-person shooters.
Yep.
Awful.
Same here.
Garbage. They can do stuff I would have never dreamed of doing. But back in the day, I was probably that kid on Mortal Kombat, right?
Mm-hmm. In some ways, I'm still that kid on Mortal Kombat.
Right. I know. Like my youth won't play Smash Brothers with me because I'm like a terror. I can't beat any adults, but I can just destroy my students. It's fantastic. Yep. So yes, I'm going to play that game. I think that we should go there. But I'm going to say that with this caveat.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that the best way to be online with your students that way is to think, I'm going to go online and I'm going to preach to them while I'm doing this. And the reason for that is because they're inviting you into their world.
Yeah.
And especially if they friend you on a game, they're inviting you into their world. And so I've had students that I've gone in a game and I've heard language that I've never heard them use before.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But that wasn't the time for me to be like, hey, Zach, the Bible says that we don't need to say that word when we lose. But it did allow me to have a conversation with him later.
Okay.
Right. It did allow me to have that conversation. And so I think that my view on that is, can I go into their world and be a presence that they can play a game with? And then their friends might say, hey man, you're a youth pastor. He was pretty cool, or he didn't freak out when this happened. Maybe I want to go to church with you.
Yeah.
Maybe they've been inviting this friend to come to church for a while. And I think I'm not saying don't go in there and never say anything about Jesus, but
right.
Like I've seen some people who are like, yeah, I use that as a real quality time to get all my students' friends together and I preach to them. And if that's you, that's cool. It's just that for me, that's not what I feel like that time's for. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's relationship building.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And mainly because, full disclosure, if I'm in there, I'm competing. All right.
Yeah. You want to win just as bad as they do, if not more.
I'm going for the win. I'm going for the win, and I'm there to have fun. And I just want to relax. Like video games are relaxation, they're escape for me. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know if I want to say it like this. I don't want to feel like a job, like I'm on my job or on a job when I'm playing a game. Right.
Yeah. No, I totally understand what you're saying there.
So yeah, I think we need to be discerning. And I think, like, some people might take from this, well, what if a student invites us to do this or this? And should we just do it willy nilly? No. Have some discernment.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, there's a game out right now, there have been games out right now that I probably wouldn't play with students, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I would recommend them to stay away from. And we talk about that some other time, but I think that, here, it's like I told a parent one time about an M-rated game. I said, they're like, have you played that? And I was like, yeah, I have. And they were like, really? And there wasn't a really like, oh, I'm going to go tell the pastor. It was like, really? Like, I want to tell me why. And what I told them was this, is I said, our students are already there.
Yep.
They're already there. So if by playing that, number one, I'm interested in it. But number two, if by playing that, I am able to have a conversation with your child about something they're doing and that deepens a relationship, then yes, why wouldn't I do that?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think it's funny that people, and I'm going to get on a little soapbox here for just a second. People want to hammer on this and they're like, oh, M-rated games. But they don't, those same people will turn around and go watch a movie with tons of foul language in it.
Or like John Wick or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Or like, John Wick just killed 500 Russians in 5 minutes, but that's okay.
Yeah. No, I get it.
So there's a little bit of dissonance there in that, and a little bit of hypocrisy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that, my byword here is be discerning.
Yeah.
And use it as a teachable moment. Use it as Chap Clark said in his book Hurt many years ago, which he's now published a new version of called Hurt 2.0. Mm-hmm. And if you're a youth worker, I highly recommend, or you work with youth, you work with teenagers, I'll read this book. In that he talks about how the students really have a subculture underneath the main culture where they live and they thrive, and that's where they exist. And if we're lucky, we get invited to come down the steps sometimes and sit on those steps and be there with them. We can't go to the subculture. We can't be part of it. But every now and then they will invite us to come down and be in that with them. And I think that those moments are valuable. And it's like this gaming question, if they invite me down the steps to come and sit with them a while and play, I'm going to do that.
Yeah. That was something that, I kind of miss about having an Xbox. Because when I had an Xbox One, I played with my students all the time because that's where they were. They were on Xbox. And it was always cool to go into that, part of their subculture and be around their friends who maybe don't come to my youth group or don't come to my church. And, you hear things like language or something. But I wouldn't get on to them about it. I'd be like, I just kind of listen. I just sit there, listen to the conversation, play the game. But it was always funny to hear those students be like, oh, dude, our youth pastor's in here. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, dude. I'm like, doesn't bother me, man. You're good. Just can you go capture B? Because it's getting taken right now. Like, hurry up.
Please don't be fake around me.
Yeah.
Right.
That's exactly it.
I was a chaplain for a high school football team for a couple of years. And it was interesting when I would walk into a locker room before a game or at practice, and all of a sudden everything would get quiet. And I was like, guys, it's nothing I've not heard before.
Yeah.
Number one.
Yeah.
Number two, I would much rather you be real in front of me than for you to put on this fake language because, oh, Pastor Marty's here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd much rather you be real.
Yeah.
Be who you are. Let's be authentic. And I'll be who I am. You be who you are.
And that's something I think people struggle with, maybe who aren't in ministry like you and I are, that, and they're probably even listening to this conversation now. But the problem with the idea or the mindset of like, oh, you need to get onto them about their language or whatever it is. It's like, I'm not the Holy Spirit. Like, I'm not going to do that, and some people may disagree with me, and that's fine. You can, but I would imagine you're probably either new to ministry or you're not in ministry and you don't really know how to go about those situations. It's just, it seems to me that when you go about it, like how you and I are discussing it, it seems to get those kids to relax a little bit more and makes them go, so maybe not all youth pastors are like how I think adults typically are. And that allows them to relax a little bit. And it might even open a door, like you said in that one situation, it opened a door for you to talk to your student a little bit later on.
Yeah.
It allows them to invite you into their world and they'll open up to you. And it's just, I don't know. It just seems it's more like about how Jesus did things. And I know people probably don't like the idea of me just kind of using it like that, but I mean, I don't see Jesus. I don't think Jesus would do that. I don't think he'd get onto a kid about their language right then. And I don't even think Jesus would play video games though, to be honest, but you know, it's just,
can somebody out there, you know, we've got the like paintings of Jesus playing hockey and playing basketball. Can we please get somebody to do Jesus playing video games with a kid?
Oh man, I think if you hit up Game Church, I think they did a couple of them if I remember correctly. But yeah,
I need to check that out.
It's a thing, man. It's that's the cool thing about gaming though, is that it's one of those things that invites you into the kids' culture and invites you into their world for a second, and it's your opportunity to really just kind of love on them, because one of the things that's rough about youth ministry is that, you know, it can get messy because there's stuff going on in those kids' homes that you don't know about until they tell you about it. And it's, I don't know. I think for us youth pastors, it's an opportunity for us to show kids that, you know, not all adults are like some of the adults in their world that are just real crappy to them. And there's this common connecting point with video games that allows you to really open those doors and to build those relationships. But I take a similar approach when it comes to M-rated games. You know, I like Mortal Kombat, but I'm not going to play it with my students. You know, we had some students over for New Year's, and they know I play Mortal Kombat, and they're like, dude, let's play Mortal Kombat. I'm like, no, you know what? I have Injustice 2. Let's play that. I think that would be a better game for what we're doing here. And they didn't raise a fuss or anything. One of the kids looked at me and was like, I'll take you then. I bet you're trash. And I'm like, all right, I'm just going to load up my competitive ranked online Green Lantern and show you who's trash here. And he learned 5 matches. He lasted 5 matches.
It's kind of like how some of my students, sometimes they'll walk up, you know, I'm playing Smash, and I'm like, oh, he's playing Bowser. Great.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's like, watch out. but yeah, that's the thing. I totally agree with you about the discernment thing. You really got to be discerning when it comes to rated M games. And yeah, I'm not the kind of person that's going to like try and bind your conscience here on the show. It's just you pray about it. And if you feel convicted about it, then at the very least put the game off for, you know, and pray about it. But just, it's one of those things you gotta pray through and think about and just be discerning. But just because it's rated M, I don't think that means it's absolutely hands off, but at the same time, just be smart about it.
Right.
Now we're running out of time. So we'll get to one last question. I'm going to answer our editor's question right now real quick, because he asked, is it okay to play horror survival games? Yes. He's only asking that so he tries to get out of playing Resident Evil 2, but we're not going to let him off the hook that easy. Dear listeners, you can be looking out for that. But Matt Crumley writes in, he goes, what is one thing y'all would like the parents of your students to know about video games or gaming culture? I think this would be a good place to land, because I think, at least in my experience, parents, when it comes to video games, they have a hard time interacting or engaging with them because it's new to them. They don't really understand it, but they also have a hard time telling their kid, hey, you know, we need to set some limits on you playing games. Or they might just freak out about a game because they heard it's satanic and the Pokemon in there are evil, and they're going to convince their kids to light stuff on fire or something. You know, it's stuff like that. But man, what would be one thing you want parents of your students to know about video games or gaming culture?
Yeah. So you may be a little old for this. I know I'm a little bit old for this, or young for this. I don't know how you say this, but when there was a time in the 70s when there was something called the Satanic Panic.
Yeah, we've talked about that a few times on the show.
Over Dungeons and Dragons.
Yep.
And I feel like some parents have a similar mindset when it comes to video games. Like they hear the word video game and they just shut down, right? And it's like, well, I guess what I want people to understand is that not all gamers are the Mountain Dew Dorito M-rated gamers, and that there are actually, shocker, benefits to playing video games.
Oh, snap. Here we go.
Right? There are benefits to playing video games. I'm the person I am today because of video games. I mean, I will gladly admit that. I mean, 8 years old, got my first Nintendo Entertainment System, and now I'm on a podcast talking about video games and student ministry. So there's not a day that goes by that I don't play a video game. And for me, they're relaxing. There's something that allows me to escape. And I think that if we're lying to ourselves, if we don't put them on the same level as movies nowadays. Movies are something that people do for escapism. Video games are something people do for escapism. It's just interactive. Now, obviously, are there times that we need to draw a line? Are there times that we need to set boundaries? Yeah, I'm a dad. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
I have boundaries for my kids. Like, we homeschool our kids. No, you can't bring your Switch to the table with your bowl of cereal and play Mario Odyssey while you're trying to do English. No, you can't do that. But after it's over, after homeschool's over, you want to play a game? Great. Let's do that. Right?
Yeah.
I think that what we do is we run the risk of, like, people are like, well, he spends all his time on video games. Well, maybe that's what he's good at. Maybe that's what your kid feels like he's good at. Because if you're like me, who was a little asthmatic kid who couldn't play sports, video games were the thing I was good at as a kid. Yeah. It made me feel good to be good at video games. So I just don't get so bent out of shape about them, and go play a video game with your kids.
Yeah.
Student pastors, play a video game with your kids. Parents, play a video game with your kids. Please take some time. Like, there's even games, like, just say, hey, can I watch you? Can I sit and watch you play this?
Mm-hmm.
Can I spend some time with you while you play this game? Go take their headphones off and say, hey, can you teach me how to play this? I guarantee you, for some of you who are parents that are listening, or like if some of the parents in your ministry, if you're a student pastor, were listening to this, if those parents went in their kids' room and said, hey, can I play this with you? Or can you teach me how to play this? It would blow their kid's mind.
Yep. Definitely. Man,
and it would open up new avenues in their relationships.
Yeah. I love that's the thing that you went with, man, because one of my favorite things, and I tell parents this all the time, is that right there. One of my favorite stories I share with parents is, you look at Terry Crews, the famous actor, and what he did with his son. He walked in on his son watching someone play a game on Twitch one time, and he was asking him about it and asking questions, and he was like, I'm losing my son to this right here. I need to get into his world and get into the things that he likes. And so he bought parts to build a PC with his son, and they started gaming together, and now they create cool memories. And I'm like, that's what we need to do. We don't have to be good at the games. We don't have to be the best at them. We don't have to be, like ninja or whatever, but just taking an interest in their world is huge to them. It probably has a bigger impact than what you may think. And so, yeah, I think that's great. Video games aren't scary. They may be intimidating depending on what you're playing. But it's just get in there, have fun with it, get in there and play with their Legos, so to speak, that kind of thing. So, man, I think that's a great place to go. I think that's a great place to end it. And what a great way to kick off 5 years of TRG here, man. Marty, I appreciate you coming on the show, man, sharing some knowledge with the dear listeners, the dear parents here. Man, it's
Thanks
awesome.
for having me.
Yeah, man. But now, real quick though, before we let you go, because I know you got to go record an episode of Nintendo Dads, but before we let you go, man, some recos. We usually give out some recos to our dear listeners, some things they should check out. What are some things that our dear listeners should check out?
Yeah, so if you're on the fence about the Nintendo Switch and you have not bought one yet, or even if you do have one, I highly recommend the Nintendo Switch Lite. I have found since owning a Switch since launch day that I play it mostly in handheld, And I bought a Nintendo Switch Lite back when they first came out in September. Such a fantastic little machine. I cannot recommend it enough. Like, seriously, it feels like what the Switch was always supposed to be. I just wish that they would let you dock it, right? Yeah. But I love my Switch Lite, and it's my primary Switch now. What we do is we use my old OG Switch as like home base, because there's games that my kids want to play too, but my Switch Lite only has my account on it. So the games are on both Switches. My Switch Lite just has to do like an internet check before I play to be sure that I own the game. So it's been super cool. I really have enjoyed it. But I also want to recommend to you Peppermint Jojo's from Trader Joe's.
Peppermint Okay, what is this?
Okay, so a Jojo at Trader Joe's is their version of an Oreo.
Okay.
Peppermint Jojos are chocolate mint covered Jojos.
Okay, sold. That sounds awesome.
I got the last box at the Trader Joe's I was at today. I kind of felt scandalous.
But at the same time, you didn't regret it.
Nope, not one bit. They also make Peppermint Jojo ice cream.
Oh man, that's
at
right
the
up my
holidays.
Man, I'm gonna have to hit
We didn't find any of that, unfortunately, but highly recommend. In fact, I'm just going to say this: any form of an Oreo, I eat it.
You're an Oreo guy.
Oh, I love Oreos. Oh my gosh, all the different flavors, all that stuff. Yep.
I'm gonna have to hit up Ched Spellman at Cedarville with some of that stuff, because we were talking ice cream and stuff the last time he was on, when we were talking about what remains of Edith Finch, and so we'll have to hit him up with. That's
my recommendation: Switch Lite and ice cream,
right on,
and cookies.
There you go. Love it, man. Well, dear listeners, some of my recos are, The Power in Prayer by Charles Spurgeon, or if you want to read The Power of Prayer, either one. I just read about prayer, get into it in 2020. And, as you go into 2020, you think of your goals, you think of your resolutions. Don't just think about them, write them down. That's something that my wife has been instilling in me, some other friends have been instilling in me, is write down your goals, because that will get you more mindful of them. I've already written down goals that I want to do for this year, like learning Spanish, reading 30 books. And then I've already written down a list of 21 games I want to try and platinum this year. So we'll see how that goes. But man,
dang, son.
Yeah, I'm known as the platinum guy on the show. I love my platinums. but do that, dear listeners. Write out your resolutions, write out your goals and all that stuff. And again, just as a side note, links to Nintendo Dads and Youth Workers Guide to Video Games will be in your show notes, so you can go check out both of those shows. Highly recommend you do so. I'm going to go check out Nintendo Dads because Wesley Ray has been telling me to do so for like a long time now. And so I need to.
He's a smart man.
I agree. He is a great dude. He's done a lot for the show, and he is very, very smart. But yeah, so dear listeners, again, those are our recos. Marty, man, thank you again for coming on the show. Appreciate that, man. Appreciate you coming on the show and talking about that. But dear listeners, just real quick before we go, a few things. If you want to support what we do here at the show, if you like what we do, you can head over to patreon.com/thereformedgamers. Pledges is $1. Words are hard. Pledges as low as $1 a month go a long way in helping us continue to do with the show. They don't help me with my words at all. It seems to get worse. But it gets you sweet perks like early uncut access to our episodes. Like our patrons are already going to be able to listen to this episode early and uncut, behind the scenes, all that kind of stuff. Special roles on Discord, access to different servers. So go over to patreon.com/thereformedgamers to check that out. You can also go to our website, thereformedgamers.com, which will have links to pretty much anything and everything, show notes, articles, where you can listen to the show, where you can like and follow and all that jazz, such as Twitter, TRG Podcast. You can like our Facebook page, join the Facebook group. You can follow us on Instagram at TRG Podcast. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can connect with us. It'll all be in your show notes. It'll all be right there. But Marty, thank you again, man, for coming on the show. Appreciate it. Looking forward to listening to Nintendo Dads and your next couple episodes of Youth Workers Guide to Video Games. But dear listeners, until next time, GG and amen. Thank you for listening to The Reformed Gamers, the show all about biblical theology and gaming. The reason the show sounds so good inside your ears is because TRG is edited by David Skinner. You can find extra content on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thereformedgamers. The Reformed Gamers is entirely fan-supported over at patreon.com/thereformedgamers by our dear patrons. The following people are at the producer level or higher and will forever be thanked and mentioned here at the end of the show, as long as their pledge comes through each month. Those people are Alex Castellanos, David Matthews, Eric Bryant, Gareth Evans, Luke Strain, and Wesley Ray. Thank you for your support over on patreon.com, keeping our controllers charged, and fueling my addictive habit of getting platinum trophies. Until next time, GG and amen.